All right, welcome everybody to ResV Systems. Coach Reslow here. We have another great interview. I'm excited for this one. Heather Evans is on the line with us, although I guess it's not really a line because we're doing video. But I'm old enough to remember when that's how radio hosts interviewed people. Heather, how you doing? Welcome.
I'm doing great, Rez. How are you? Thanks for having me on.
I'm doing great. And for those that don't know, Heather is awesome. Number one. Number two, she's a bigwig at NCSA. She's one of the top recruiting coaches, in my opinion. And her volleyball life and journey is fantastic, which we'll delve into. But before we get started, how is the NCSA role going? How are we doing?
Oh, NCSA is so much fun. So I'm a senior volleyball recruiting coach. Celebrated my 2 years with them. I started in May of 2021. So just over 2 years with them and, working with some incredible families all over the globe. Like I have families in Australia and Slovenia and France, and it's just really fun to dive in, because I do have some international experience myself. So just kind of like catching up and talking about like life. And then we get to the volleyball part, of course, but just having a lot of fun helping kids make good decisions for their futures.
I remember loving that part of the job where I was like, I'm on a phone or on a Zoom call with a kid from Egypt. I'm on a phone or Zoom call with a kid from Dubai. And it's just like, this is wild. Like and then you start thinking even, grander schemes like, oh my gosh, like the technology we have today where we can actually be face to face with somebody across the world at any moment, at any time. It's just mind blowing for us old people. Although you're younger than I am. I'm the old person. So I mean, when you agreed to come on, I was really excited because one of the things I wanted to talk to you about is, the adventure that you've been on in terms of your volleyball career and your volleyball journey. But the first thing I want to start with is how'd you get into the game? Let's go right back to the beginning. Give us the start.
Oh man. Okay. Let's see. So I'm from northern Minnesota, 5 miles south of the Canadian border. When I was growing up, it was 6 miles south, but I swear there's like this new update that somehow we got closer to the Canadian border by 1 mile. So I played 3 sports in high school, but I remember, kind of elementary around the age of 10 was probably the first time I ever picked up a volleyball. We didn't have club, we didn't have JOs, we didn't have really any of that up north. That wasn't until like freshman year of high school. And I was all basketball, Scott. Like I didn't want really anything to do. I did other sports because I was an active kid, like elementary, middle school age, but volleyball wasn't the top. It was all basketball. I was obsessed. And of course, hockey, like, everything's hockey in my hometown. We're proudly Hockey Town, USA, not Detroit, Michigan. I will fight anybody who wants to go down that road. But yeah, like 14, I tried out we had like a regional JO program. I tried out, I did not make it. I tried out with a bunch of 18-year-olds because I missed my age group tryout. And they're like, well, if you want to try, you got to be with these guys. I forgot my knee pads. I was terrible at volleyball. So needless to say that they're like, pass, you are not good at volleyball. But they said I could be an alternate. And I was like, sure. Like, I don't know what that means, but basically it was like if somebody couldn't play for, a game or some match tournament, they'd pull me up, but they never did. And then, fast forward like another year, I tried out again, and then I made like the 2 age groups up. So then it was like this spark of like, oh, like maybe I have something here. There's some talent there, untapped. Like, I was very tall. I was around 6 feet, and just really not refined. I was a bull in a china shop, so, to put it lightly. But yeah, I got to play, JOs, and back then, like I was able to be a 3-sport athlete: volleyball, basketball, fast pitch, softball. The month of June was volleyball again. And that was it. Like our club season back then was not 9 months long. It was, and I really love that. I miss that. I kind of wish that was the way the world was these days, because I don't like that our kids have to choose so much, but I'll go on that tangent another time. So played, JOs.
Quickly. I can envision you as a basketball player. I certainly can envision you as a volleyball player. I got to know what you did in softball. Like what position were you in softball?
And I love softball. And I actually, okay, spoiler alert, went on and played college, right? And my plan was to play 4 years volleyball, 5th year softball. Like I was recruited, like that was going to happen. Needless to say, I got burnt out. But no, I was my coach, shout out Terry Sadler, my high school coach, wanted me to be a pitcher. and I just resisted it like crazy because I was not good at it. Like I have the levers, I understood the mechanics of it, but I just had no control whatsoever.
So you're hitting people.
I could fling that thing, but Lord, we had no idea where it was going to go. And I love third base and then first base. So kind of a mix, he moved us around quite a bit. I had a stint in center field, which was hysterical because I have no depth perception whatsoever. Like somebody popped up a ball in some playoff game and I'm like, booking it. I'm going to get this. It's going to drop right behind second base. And I missed it. It was just ridiculous. But super fun.
Cool. All right. I'm trying. I could see, I mean, as a pitcher, a 6 foot tall pitcher, that's got to be devastating. I can understand your coach's idea that would work. But
If you can put it where it needs to go.
You can't be hitting people. Those of you who've seen Major League, you understand. You can't be.
Oh my gosh. Like, okay, short story. So we're in pitching practice. This is high school, like maybe senior year. My cousin, shout out Jenny Story. My cousin is up to bat. He's got me pitching. I pitch, I nail her in the like inside ankle. Okay. And so we're like, great, good job. And I'm throw pretty fast. And she's like, good Lord. And she just dusts it off because she's super tough, gets back up in there. And I pitch again, nail her in the exact same spot, the exact same ankle. And my coach, he's like, you had the same zero.
You did it.
Oh my God. So yeah, but that was the most shining, best performance of my career, is hitting my cousin twice in batting practice.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, funny thing, a similar start to athletics for me as well. Like I was a 3-4 sport person, and I played football, which was, I loved football until middle school, but then, people sort of recognized that basketball was probably going to be my ticket. And I ended up playing basketball in college, and that's sort of how that began. But I did volleyball as well. I did basketball, I did football, and I did baseball. And I was a pitcher, but I had no steam. I couldn't throw it well, but I could throw junk. Like I could throw a curveball, I could throw a slider, I could throw a split fingered fastball that would dive. I could even throw a knuckle. So I'm going all throughout Little League. I'm actually doing pretty well and winning games and being noticed per se. And then I get to, middle school, and I do fine, really have a decent career as a middle school pitcher. And then I go to high school, but we moved to Rhode Island because we're from Pennsylvania. And then, I moved my sophomore year. So it was my sophomore year. And I go over there, and the coach, I had to try out, do all the things. And the coach is like, yeah, you're just not athletic enough for this. And I was like, I'm the starting forward for basketball. like I don't know what that means, and I'm not athletic. And like, I was like, all right, I'm just not athletic for baseball. That's what it is. And then I focused strictly on basketball and volleyball. Like those are the two things I did.
What position were you in basketball?
I was a center in Rhode Island. In Pennsylvania, I was a wing. I was a 3. And like, because in Pennsylvania, I grew up in Southern Lehigh, and Southern Lehigh, all dudes were 6'5", 6'6". Like it wasn't a rarity to be that big. I could shoot the ball pretty well. I wasn't fast enough to really make the next leap, but I was pretty good. And then when I moved to Rhode Island, everyone's 5'9", 5'10". So they're like,
you're going center.
You're the big dude. And I was like, this stinks. And then when I went to college and played at Moravian, like, they just had it in their head that I was a big man. And now when I graduated high school, I was 6'6", 175. And like, they're like, oh, all right, so you're going to go bang with all these 6'8", 6'7", 6'6" dudes that are all 250, 260. And I just got my ass kicked. Like, it was like, oh, it sucks. And then by my junior year, got up to around 245, and I was pretty big, but I lost, I don't know, first off, my college career, I was a Nimrod anyway. I was a bonehead. But at the same time, like, I think all the weights I had to lift, I sort of lost a lot of my touch. Like I wasn't able to find the rhythm of shooting the ball like I used to. So I don't know. Basketball,
that balance of strength and finesse. Yeah. And like I said, bull in a china shop, I had no finesse, like ever. It was just all like brute power, putting whatever I had into whatever it was, hitting a softball, throwing a basketball at a rim. Yeah. I had a little finesse. I like to say that because I could shoot, I was decent, but my coach would never let me be point guard. Like, well, he was like, Heather, as much as you hate physical contact and running, we need you down in the post, sweetheart.
Yeah,
Like,
so it sounds the same as me, pretty much. And I think my coach
yes.
called me sweetheart as well. But but I think it was what was most interesting to me, basically thinking about basketball, was that when I finished my college career, and it was a disappointment. And like I said, I did not help matters with my attitude and the way I did things. But
Mhm.
when I graduated, and I graduated in '99, and then 2000 2001, I started playing in the semi-pro league in Rhode Island. It was really a small league, but you had to get invited. Like, you couldn't just show up. You had to be sort of known, and it had to be pretty good. And I got invited to that, and I started playing in it, and I actually took the leap and got really good. And it was probably the best physical shape I'd ever been in my life. And like, everything came back together. My touch came back, like everything was working. And that's when I got asked to play professional in Europe, in Poland, because Jacek Duda was on my team. And Jacek was a 7-foot monster from Poland who came to PC to play at Providence College for Rick Pitino. And his
Wow.
career had been over. They had made it to the Final Four. His career had been over, and he had been he decided to live in Rhode Island, get married, and settle down. He's playing in this league, and I'm on his team, and he's like, I still have connections back to Poland. We should get you out there. I said, sure, like, let's do that. And then he called back, said, we really want you to try out. We can make this work for you. And then two things happened at the tryout. I sort of got hurt, so damaged goods,
Oh,
not great. And then the
oh
second
no.
thing was, 2001, 9/11 happened, and it became not a good idea to exchange your U.S. citizenship for something else. So, so in the end, I was hurt, and other circumstances took me away from basketball. But basketball was never a good luck omen for me. Like, nothing
Yeah.
ever went well with basketball. But I loved playing
Yeah.
with Yazik, because Yazik was the funniest person I'd ever met. Like,
Yeah.
he would just bust my chops the entire time. Like, I remember, and I know this is your interview, not mine, but I remember,
I'm here for it. This is awesome.
I remember playing in a pretty big game against some really good players, and we were down two with like 5 to 10 seconds left to go, and somehow the ball got in my hands, and I launched a three and got fouled.
It
So
was-
So I was going to the free throw line. And as I go to the free throw line, Yazik's like, "Oh, we're gonna lose now." I was like, "Thanks, dude. Thanks, dude." And,
Yes.
and then so I'm at the free throw line. I start my routine, and Yaz is down low, getting in the they didn't need to be down there. There was only like 1 second left, but like, he's down there at the blocks getting ready for a possible rebound. And then he looks at me and goes, "We're losing anyway," and he just walked off the court. And then
Stop. No.
and it was all in good fun. Like, he's having a good
Yeah.
time. It was Yazik. He wasn't being mean. It was just him being him.
Yeah.
And I bricked the first two shots, and we lost. That was it.
Oh
I
my
mean,
gosh.
I love him. I don't know where he is right now. I hope he's still in Rhode Island. I haven't seen him in a long, long time. But oh my god, I was laughing so hard when the second shot didn't go, because then I knew that he was gonna just give me some more shit. And then after that, he took me out. We had a blast.
Oh my gosh. I love it.
Yeah.
That's a great
So
story.
basketball, man. Basketball was never my thing. But then I got into volleyball, and of course things changed. So now you go to volleyball, and
Yeah.
you played in college. Where'd you play?
Well, let me tell you, I went to North Dakota State University. Go Bison. Um, oh my gosh, my recruiting story and just like my path to college story is like, I'm so proud of where I am today to be able to help
Mm,
kids through that decision making, because when I think back to where I was as a teenager, thinking about that, dreaming about it, I'm like, this all makes sense. This is exactly where I need to be to help kids with that. Because, I had an athletic director, I had awesome coaches in northern Minnesota, but recruiting and going to college, let alone volleyball, was
mm,
not everybody's wheelhouse. It was small town USA, one in how many actually go on to play. Like, come on.
mhm.
So had these big dreams early on. I'm like, I'm going to be a D1 athlete. I'm going to be an Olympian. I'm going to be a lawyer. Pulled that out of somewhere. And I actually had a full ride D1 offer to a law school. And I was
Nice.
like, cool, on paper, looks good. This is going to be fantastic. I go on my official visit, hated it.
Really?
Absolutely hated it. I was like, I don't belong here. Something feels off. I'm walking the campus, I'm meeting the girls, I'm watching the games, and I'm like, ugh, it just doesn't
Hmm.
feel right, you know? So I was like, holy cow, I have to turn that down. And I want you to know, full disclosure, I grew up on welfare, single parent family. Shout out to my mom for holding it down. Like,
Hmm.
she did everything she could to give me every opportunity possible. Scott, I needed the money. I
Hmm.
needed the full ride, to
Yeah,
go
yeah,
on and
yeah.
play. So to turn that down was really heartbreaking, and in a moment where I felt very defeated.
Hmm.
And so thankfully, North Dakota State they had been kind of recruiting me hard young, like early on. This is back when we used to send recruiting questionnaires in the mail, like things snail mail style. And I
Oh
do
yeah.
remember, and I hope, my coaches don't ever see this and get mad at me, but I would take those flyers, throw them right in the garbage because I never wanted to go to NDSU. And only because I didn't want to live in Fargo. I thought it was too close to home. I wanted to get out and spread my wings. I just had these other ideas. So NDSU said, Heather, just come on campus, just come meet us. Like, who cares? Whatever you decide, just come check it out. And they also did a home visit. Remember home visits for
Oh
college? Like, they
yeah.
came all the way up to northern Minnesota,
Oh
sat at my
yeah.
kitchen, showed me a PowerPoint presentation, like all these things. Like, it was awesome. And just, they recruited me. They really made me feel good and special. And so I got on campus, and it was like the clouds parted, the heavens came out and sang, and angels, and it was like, you're home, girl. So I got so lucky that they just wouldn't take no for an answer. They knew me better than I knew myself. Like, you're going to do well here. You're going to love
Hmm.
it. And so, yeah, I ended up going to NDSU. I was really, really bad. I had a backwards approach as a middle. So
Hmm.
we had to fix that.
Always
I
hard.
lacked I lacked the lateral quickness. I was not good at reading. What was our offense in high school? High ball in the middle, high ball outside. Probably didn't even have much of a back set ever.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
going from that to NDSU, which back then NDSU was a powerhouse D2 program,
Sure.
fast systems, crossing plays, backcourt, that like what? So I was lost. And I got there, and it took me a good year, that freshman year, to just figure out where on earth I was. But sophomore year, became a starter, started to get it, and had some incredible like coaching and mentorship at that experience. I did not peak, in college. I mean, I was still very hungry to keep
Hmm.
playing after college. And then that's when I, pursued an opportunity to play overseas. Do you remember the USPVL? So this was a pro league in the
Hmm.
US back in 2003-ish. United States Professional Volleyball League. There were only 4 women's teams. Minnesota
Okay.
Chill was one of them. Does that anything?
Yeah. Well,
Chicago had one.
yeah, I think the PVL there's PVL New England,
Yep.
and for men, and it was, interestingly enough, just to tiptoe into a quick story there,
Yeah.
in Rhode Island, in Massachusetts, Connecticut, New York, they had this thing called Yankee volleyball, and we would all play in it, and after everything had happened in my career for basketball, I started playing with these dudes, and the Yankee volleyball was considered at the top level, the AAA and the Open and that type of stuff. It was considered the
Yeah.
closest thing you get to semi-pro volleyball, right?
Yeah.
So I worked my way onto Team Rhode Island, and I was an M2 for them, and had a decent career with these guys. These guys were all better than I was, but I was 6'6", and I was an athlete, and I could jump and I could move and I was quick. And I totally relate to where you were at the beginning of your college career, because I didn't know what the hell was going on. Like, the volleyball that I had played had been pretty simplistic, and I had been focusing and learning all this stuff in basketball. So now I'm thrown into the into the woods with these guys, and there's a lot going on, and there's a lot of big athletes that are doing a lot of big things. And I belong there athletically, but I didn't belong there in terms of my IQ and how things would work.
Yep.
So
Yep.
Yankee was great. Yankee was awesome. There's a lot of cool stuff, had some great experiences. However, once the PVL was organized and became a thing, they basically stripped all the good players from Yankee. So now, like, Team Rhode Island would play, let's say, I don't know, Creole from New York.
Okay.
And that would be an awesome match. Like, Rhode Island Creole would win, maybe 50%, well, 60 to 70% of the time, but that 30% that Rhode Island win, it was pretty damn cool. So, but then PVL happened, and then the top players from both teams would go play for the PVL. Now those Yankee teams are not as good anymore, and then the PVL would actually play in those Yankee tournaments, so they would just dominate, and
Yeah.
it sort of destroyed the Yankee vibe that was going on during that time
Okay.
period, where a lot of cool things were happening. Oddly enough, the very first men's PVL team, I was actually asked to be an assistant coach on that, and I
Oh,
ended up
fun.
not doing it because the schedules didn't match up. The guy who was the head coach was the head coach at Riviera University, and he was a competitor of me at Johnson and Wales, but we were both going to do this thing together. But he did the whole PVL schedule based on Riv schedule and not mine,
Oh,
and so.
oh,
So
not gonna
I
work.
was like, it's not going to work. So I went to 2 practices and that was it. But
Oh,
continue, talk about PVL for you.
yeah. So it was, and this was a very small league. It was USPVL, and I know there's been so many attempts at pro indoor volleyball in decades past.
Mm,
So this was just one of those attempts, and they had a draft. I went to Chicago. I have a little shirt. It's the number 93, and I did my tryout. I gave it my best shot to try and make the draft, and so they sent us a letter. They said, you made the draft. So I made the next round. I was like, yes, like I'm going to play pro indoor volleyball in the United States of America. And then like we got a letter shortly thereafter that they're going to fold because they were going to like expand from 4 to 8 teams, and they got that a long strategic plan. But corporate sponsorships were hard to keep, keeping volleyball marketable, all the things, right? All the struggles they've ever had with pro leagues. And so we got a letter, and they said, you know what, we're folding, but if you want to play overseas, here's a great agent, Bring It Promotion, shout out Tim Kelly, and go through them. We'll get you overseas and take a look at what's over there. So that's what led me. I did a 5 country tour, European tour with Bring It Promotions. I had an offer on the table from a Germany professional team. They were going to pay me €200 a month, which is nothing. Like the people that are playing like playing at the next level out overseas. I was like, what? No, thank you. Thank you. They were going to give me a car though, too. So that was kind of neat. But anyways, all this to say, I ended up in France. So if you can see the Eiffel Tower behind me, like I'm still very
sure.
obsessed with my pro career. It's very short and sweet. I got homesick, pretty easily, but I loved that experience. I have some incredible friends and memories and cultural experiences from playing 1 hour outside of Paris for a year, pro indoor volleyball. But then, like I said, I got homesick, came back, was like really in this soul searching mode. I'm like, man, I don't want to stop playing, but what do I have? What are my options? So I ended up getting into college coaching a little bit more seriously. Before I went to France, I had one stint at College of St. Benedict, which is a Division III school in the middle of Minnesota. I was the assistant coach, and then I got to be interim head coach when our head coach was pregnant and out for maternity leave. So I had a really
Mm,
great taste of college coaching. I loved it, but I was like still antsy and wanted to be a player, right?
right. Yeah.
So, go to France, come back, and then Minnesota State Mankato was hiring when I came back. And so I submitted my application. This is down in Mankato, Minnesota, D2 program, and submit my application. Didn't hear anything back. And then finally one day got an interview. And I sat down in my interview with Dennis Amundsen. Everybody calls him Ami. He was volunteer at University of Minnesota. He's a big deal. Like everybody
Yeah.
knows Ami. Like he's our little volleyball Yoda, man. Like he speaks in riddles. He's brilliant. I love him. Anyways, he actually gave me an interview because my references said, please get her in on an interview. So when we're talking about, it's not about what you know, it's who you know, that matters. Like, because he had me in the no pile. He's like,
Really?
Heather, you just got back from playing. Why would I want you to be an assistant? I need a coach. I don't need a player. I was like,
Right.
oh. So we sat in our interview. We had a great talk. He ended up giving me the job. I got hired. But as we're going, he's noticing that he's like, Heather, I got to tell you, you're getting better as a player than you are as a coach. Cause like I was literally listening to him and applying everything we were
Oh
teaching our
yeah.
kids to
Oh yeah.
myself.
Oh
And
yeah.
so I was like, oh my gosh. And you can feel it. You can feel that rise of like improvement and volleyball IQ, and everything's just kind of forming. And I'm like, man, so I had to leave that position. Ended up getting a graduate assistant position at South Dakota State. And so that's my third, college, that's my D1 coaching experience. And I'm sitting, I'm pursuing my master's degree. I'm sitting down in a vocational studies class. We had an assignment where we had to talk about career and what we were going to do with our lives. And that's always wonderful. Sat down with the professor in his office and I said, I'm having a really hard time with this paper and this assignment. And he's like, let's keep it simple. What do you want to do? What would you do if nobody paid you $1 in your life? That classic question of what would you do? And I said, I would
You,
play professional volleyball. And
you,
he said,
you would create ResV and you
oh my,
would
yeah, right,
interview
right, right.
people.
We would do ResV systems. And so he goes, okay. And he looks me flat in the face. And this is a man who knows nothing about volleyball, Scott. He knows nothing. He goes, so why aren't you playing? As if it's that simple, right? To just keep playing volleyball, right? And I looked at him and it was almost this moment of like, why am I not playing? What am I
Yeah.
doing? He's not
Yeah.
wrong. And so I was like, that's it. Packed up, said, I'm going for pro beach volleyball. I have 0 beach volleyball experience whatsoever, but at the ripe age of 28, pack up, drive to San Diego, and then we can certainly talk about that chapter.
Yeah, well, I gotta confess, like that was when I started thinking about people to interview on ResV. Like one of the reasons I wanted you specifically was that story, because and especially thinking about some of the things you've just talked about, you've had this courageous spark in you that allows you to just say, all right, I'm going to go do this. And like I said off camera, like I have that gremlin in the back of my head that's always telling me, you can't do this. Don't do this. You don't know what you're doing. You don't know how to do it. Like, don't do any of that stuff. And it's extremely hard for me personally to persevere through that gremlin, and to see somebody like yourself who has just said, damn it all, I'm going to go do what I want to go do, no matter what. I found it so admirable. And when I thought about it, I was like, I got to have Heather on. I need to have her speak to this and at least tell me, or at least tell our viewers, how did she do it? Because I want to actually relate to something else you said too. You get better through sharing experiences and coaching. I think you just do, as a human being and as a person who's interested in whatever sport that you're coaching. So if you're teaching someone how to do it, you actually have to do the work to figure out, to know what you're talking about. But you can't just be like, yeah, I'm going to teach you something, but I don't know how to do it. But so the more you're involved in coaching, you actually get better at that skill set. And
100%.
certainly one of the things I've noticed through quite frankly all of these interviews I've been doing is that I've learned a lot from all these coaches I'm interviewing. It's like, oh my God, all the experiences, all the things that you guys have been doing. I love it. I love every second of it. And I don't understand why more people don't watch the interviews that I've done. Not because of me, like I'm a bum, but the people I'm interviewing is pretty high level. So
Yeah.
anyway, that aside, talk to that part of it. What makes you, or what allows you, or what is your process to get through the doubt that may be in your head when these opportunities or these scenarios present themselves?
Yeah, and just to be clear, I think all of us have that person in I like to call my gremlin my bully. It's a bully. This is the person in my head who's saying, you're not good enough, you're never going to be good enough. She still exists.
Yep.
I'm 43 years old and I still battle her. It's the human condition, right? We have a negative bias. We have all these things that we're fighting, but like, I think I'm such a dreamer and I have so much passion. It's undeniable and I can't ignore it. So that voice was louder. And I was like, I'm going to pay attention to you. What do I have to lose? I have nothing to lose and everything to gain. I have my whole life to like settle down and do all these certain things. So I'm like, I'm young, I'm healthy, my body's in a good spot, my mind is in a good spot. I'm just going to do it. And I had enough people too. I had enough people in my support circle that said, go do it. There are plenty that were saying, oh, that's so irresponsible. You need to settle down. You need to get a job. My poor grandpa was like, get health insurance. I'm like, I can't afford it. So it just, yeah, it was one of those things where I just had to ignore the bully and then just say, I get one body, I get one life, and I want to do this more than anything. So I'm just going to do it. And it was not easy. I was not good at beach volleyball. But I didn't care. I really, really wanted to go for it. And I'm like, I'm going to pay attention to my heart and my gut. So I think that was part of it. Just that will power to kind of overcrowd the bully. But then I also had enough cheerleaders, not a lot, not a lot, Res. Not everybody's going to say, oh, that's a great decision, right? But
Mhm.
at the same time, it's not their life. I go back to Dennis Amundsen. He wrote me a poem. Actually, I'm going to read it to you.
Hmm.
He wrote me a poem, and this is when I was at Minnesota State, and I love this. If beset by the confusion of other people's delusion, seek not another's choice, listen to your own voice. The road to be free is about the journey. Seek not another's vision, live your own decision.
Hmm.
And I have goosebumps right now. Like as I'm reading, I
Yeah.
want to cry because this man was so impactful, in pushing me to make decisions for myself and trust my gut, trust my resourcefulness. Like if there's something I've learned about myself throughout these years, I'm going to get pushed down, I'm going to struggle, but I will get back up every time.
Hmm.
I've proven that to myself, and that helped me. That helped me just get out there, get in the car. My Chevy Impala, just pack it up. Let's drive across the country and get ourselves to San Diego. So that's how
Yeah.
I got there, at least.
I love it. I love all of that. I mean, it's almost like you have to create a mechanism to force yourself to go forward. Like I know personally with the struggles that I've had, like I'll, all these ideas, even the idea of picking up the phone and calling somebody for me, or clicking send on my resume to apply for something. Like there's this buildup and crescendo right to the
Yes.
moment where I actually hit send or hit the call button or hit whatever. And like at that moment, like that's where the bully or the gremlin in the background
Gremlin.
says, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. And I literally, sometimes I say it physically out loud, but sometimes it's in my head, just effing do it. And
Yeah,
then I'll click the button and then it all dissipates. I'm like, all right, well,
it does. It
whatever
does.
happens next is going to happen next.
It
But
does.
it sounds like you have, this mechanism that you utilize. And then certainly once you go, it's never as bad as you think it's going to be.
Yeah.
And more often than not, you've built up enough armor where you can handle whatever's going to happen. And I
Yeah.
think, a lot of that comes from, for me, it comes from my parents, it comes from the upbringing that I had, and it comes from the people that I worked with. And certainly, you talk about your cheerleaders, it's the same thing. It's the people that provide you the armor to handle life. But
I have
I love the
my
adventure.
grandma. I always affectionately say my grandma is my hero.
Mm.
And I remember in the heart of my pro beach career, where, when you think of a professional beach volleyball player, you're thinking of, Carrie Walsh, April, Ross, Misty May, Karch Karai, all the greats. And then the ones that are, currently, the Taylors, like they're just so much fun to watch. I was not that level. Okay. I got paid to play beach volleyball, not a ton of money, but enough to where I could make a living off of it. Right. But I remember in the heart of it, and I was like, man, I don't feel like I'm really gonna make it. And like, if I don't have pro beach, what's my fallback plan? What is my next job or next, life decision? And I'm on the phone with her and she said, I go, Grandma, how do I do this? And she said, put one foot in front of the other. And that's so like cliche, right? Like
It
what?
is,
And
yeah,
and I
but it's
remember,
true.
oh, it's so impactful. I took a picture of my feet. I'm not even kidding you. I still have it. I took a picture of my feet, putting one foot in front of the other. And I said, Grandma, and I'd send her that picture. I'm like, I am taking one step at a time. Because if you do get too far ahead, you'll fail.
That's right.
You're going to struggle. You're going to have anxieties and fears and doubt that don't serve you. That does not serve you. Put things in your head that make you take that one little step forward. Like you said, press the send button, let it fly, let it ride. It's okay. Yeah.
It's
Love my grandma.
another way of saying live in the present,
Live in the
because
present.
you can't, no one knows what's going to happen in the future. No one knows how it's going to break down. You can envision it, and oftentimes when you envision what the future looks like, especially if the gremlin or the bully's talking, it's not a good future, so you
Right.
immediately recoil and you don't want to do it. But if you live in the present, like who knows what could happen.
Yeah.
Who
Yeah.
knows how it can all unfold. And then the other thing too that I've started doing that's been beneficial for me is that living in the present when I'm doing anything has allowed me to appreciate it more. Now granted, that happens just because you get older, like
Yes.
23-year-old Scott probably missed out on things he could appreciate because he's an idiot, but 46 year
Absolutely.
old Scott 46-year-old Scott is actually taking time to smell the roses. Like when my South County team won the major this year at Mohegan, like I took a deep moment as soon as that final point. And I remember looking at the crowd and going, oh, we just did something cool. And then I just stopped and looked
Yes.
all the way around. I was like, wow, look what,
Yes.
and then we went through the handshake line and they're like, oh, by the way, we need you to come to this other room in the casino. And I was like, oh, all right, fine, whatever. So I go and grab all my stuff. Why are we going to another room in the casino? I got to go home. We go to this other room and it's this grand stage and there's medals and banners and they're gonna announce us all. And I'm like, holy shit, what is going on right now? This is what happens when
Can I
you
get
win
some
one. I haven't
snacks?
won one before. I was like, this is wild. And again, when I got up on the podium, I started looking around, going, instead of just, you know, thinking about what could happen next, I tried to appreciate what was actually happening because it doesn't happen very
Oh yeah.
often. You know, for some teams it does happen often, but in our world in Rhode Island, you know, we're usually the 3, 4, or 5 best team in the region. So to win a regional tournament, it's pretty awesome. So again, one step at a time, appreciate what's happening, live in the present. That's been the key for me lately, in the sense that it's like, all right, well, I'm gonna enjoy this, and who
Yeah.
knows what can happen if you put yourself out there.
Right.
Tell you another time the gremlin really got me was when I wanted to create ResV and start doing videos. I was like,
Yeah.
I am not. Why do I want to put my face out in front of everybody? Because
Yeah.
first off, it's not the greatest face, but secondly, it's vulnerability. It's a chance for people to
It
tell you you're
is.
wrong. It's a chance for people to tell you that you don't know what you're talking about, or that you're an idiot,
Yeah.
or that you're an asshole, or whatever it might be.
Right.
Why make that risk? And then I just went, because I wanna.
Right.
And it's in,
Right.
you know. So
Totally.
yeah, I again, I think the route that you took thus far, and continue to take, I love how you just say we're going for it. I think it's
Yeah.
amazing and I think it's wonderful.
I would like to mention, because like as you're a rising, an athlete like who's really striving for it and go, it doesn't look like this, right? It's more like, and it does all these
Yeah,
crazy, it goes that
yeah,
way, and then but as
yeah.
you're doing it, you're almost on this like autopilot. Like us high achieving, humans that are really passionate and going for it, you're kind of on this autopilot. And you're right. We forget to celebrate those moments that were wins. We don't, or we don't lean into them long enough. Maybe we're like,
Mm,
yay, yay, me, but onward to the next thing, America, we got to be the best. And it's like, keep
mm,
going. It's like, no, 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 no. So one, as an older coach now, I can sit and be in those moments and bring my kids in and say, look, just
mm,
look, take a deep breath, take this in right now and do it again. Like, we're going to stay here and celebrate this moment, because it will fleet, it will go, and you're going to forget. And then all the negative things that did happen is what you're going to start to remember. So we got to like lock that in, create a core memory somehow. But the other side of being present. So I actually tore my Achilles tendon
oh,
during my pro beach career,
mm,
and I was 31. And you guys, like, do the math. I started playing pro beach, or trying, at 28. It's kind of in a really good physical position, mentally pretty good, but the clock's ticking. Like, if
mhm,
you look at the pros, you look at people. I mean, only John Hyden's playing forever. Like, what is he in his 50s now? Like, he's incredible. But like, I only had so many years to play and really go for it. So 3 years in, snap, gone. My right foot's not working anymore. Oh
mm.
my gosh. But I was able, like, during it, I'm like, it's over. Oh my gosh, I gotta move back home. Like, all the things, right? Everything negative that could possibly have happened definitely happened. Um, got a boot, put a big old plastic bag around it, kept coaching, kept staying in the game as much as I could while I was recovering. And I did end up coming back and playing again 7 months later. So I did have a couple more years, maybe a year and a half after that tear rupture, and kept going. But I'll tell you what, those were my most fond and best years, because I was so in it. Because every single time I took the court, it was an absolute blessing and honor and privilege. And I needed that Achilles, I needed that complete rupture in my life and my brain, my physical body, to get me to really appreciate what I had as long as I had it. So
Heather, check
even the
check.
negative stuff, leaning into
Yeah.
that negative stuff. Yeah,
Oh man, I got so many things to relate there. So many things are going on in my
I
head. The
bet.
first, I was like smiling. I was like, oh my God. So the first thing is that we do, as coaches and players, we walk this tightrope where you have to focus on the negative to prepare and learn and get better for the next event. So you're always sort of like, all right, what do we do wrong? How do we fix that? And you said it perfectly. We don't lean into the successes enough. Like, appreciate what you've accomplished, because that's the reason you do it. You have those big moments in life that are really fun. The second thing is, I was watching a dumb movie with my wife on Netflix this past, what day? Yesterday? 2 days ago? I don't even know what day it was. But it's this really bad movie, right? I mean, it's from France, and it's based off a video game, about two little Vikings that like take on the world or what have you. And there was and the person that they're saving, it's not a damsel in distress. She's the queen of China or something, and she was captured, and then she needs help, and she's in the prison with this other dope, and the guy's freaking out, and like, they're gonna kill us, and she says, and it stuck with me, she says, and I quote, "We live two lives. The first one goes on until we realize that we're gonna die, and then the second one starts." And I was like, "Oh, I love that. I love everything about that." and that's what you're describing, right? Like, you're going along doing your thing. You've taken on this Herculean challenge, because a lot of people are, they really prep before they become a pro beach volleyball player. You just jumped into it because it's what you wanted to do. You followed your dream. Oh, it was great, right? And then you get hurt, and then you see that the writing on the wall is finally there, that there will be a finality to this. And you just mentioned that your second part from there on, once you got back on the sand, you appreciated that way more than the first part of it. Yeah, because you realized that there's a finality. Your second life in beach volleyball had begun because you realized that there was an ending to it. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I love that movie.
And
I gotta go watch the dumb movie again.
now I got to watch this dumb movie on Netflix. I mean, and if I may, like, I currently coach, right? I coach beach volleyball in Northern Colorado. I coach indoor, and volunteer locally. But I tell you what, I have this whole different kind of joy inside of me every time I take the court. And it happened when I tore my Achilles. Like, every moment of volleyball after that has been richer, and full of joy, and not as much angst as it used to be in the past, and pain. And, there's certainly depression and anxiety that can come with just playing sport. So I would never wish for everybody to go get injured and then have to come back from that. But like,
No.
What can you have in that defining moment to get you to bring that joy back? Like, the most heartbreaking thing is when I work with families and kids who they didn't make a team, they had some negative thing happen, they got bullied on their team, and it stole their joy. It completely ripped it away. That's not fair. And they don't give them that power. That's your power. You're here for you to enjoy this life, the one that you've been given. And I just wish our kids could get to that level of joy and hold on to it longer, and really, really appreciate that privilege to play any sport or literally do anything, with an able body.
Yeah, I actually, I try to challenge the players that play for me now in club with that sentiment. Like, all right, hey, something went wrong. We're gonna run sprints, and they all give me this look like, "Gosh, Res, really? We got to run sprints?" I'm like, "Yeah, you know why? Because it reminds you that this is wonderful. You can actually do this." Because and they're looking at me like, "Well, what do you mean?" I'm like, "Well, I can't run a sprint anymore. Like, my fat butt can't run anything. I would love to run them with you." Like, we used to, when I was at Johnson and Wales, we used to run them with the guys because I wanted to still be involved. I wanted to have that feeling, and of course they would light us up because they're athletes in the premiere of their lives, and I'm, on the back end. And so, to try to change the perception. All right, we're running sprints. It's a punishment. It's negative. Actually, no, if you can change your thought pattern on it and say, look, it's not a punishment per se. It's a reminder that we need to do this differently or better. And it's a blessing that we can actually do this. And like, I say that you guys are young athletes. Running 5 sprints is nothing to you.
Right.
It's nothing to you. You can do that 20 times over. Yeah, you'd be tired. Yeah, you'd be feeling like this stinks, but you would pop back up. I run 20 sprints and I'd be going to the ambulance and going to the hospital because my heart's about to give.
Falling, I can't get up. Life alert.
Yeah. I remember the last time I used to at Johnson Wales, with my volleyball teams, I would let anybody challenge me to a 1-on-1 basketball game because none of these dudes could play basketball, and I could. So every year I would let somebody challenge me to 1-1. I never lost until the final year. The final year, some kid got me, and like, he just beat me. He hit a couple shots that I didn't think he would, and that was the end of it. And that was in 2019. That was in 2020. So,
Okay.
so for 12 years, every year I would let someone play me 1-on-1. I would beat them big. One time was the best. Like, I had a kid who was who was a real good athlete. His name was Sean, and it was close, and he was giving me trouble, but I had the ball, and I was up to 1 to win, and Sean's getting down, really get ready to guard me because it's been tough. I said, "Sean, is that your girlfriend over there?" He turned around. I went by him and dunked it on him, and
Come
I was
on,
like,
man.
yes, that's how it
Come
works
on, man.
around here. That's how it works around here. So,
If
but
you ain't
anyway,
cheating, you ain't trying.
that's
That's
right.
Ricky
Dude,
Bobby.
it's called being wily. It's called being
Wild.
being a veteran of the game. But the last
Gosh.
3 times, 2020, 19, 18, like when the game was over, like I'd be on the bleachers really hurting. Like I'd be like, oh,
Yeah.
that was a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. Because I spoiler alert for all the youngins out there, your mind stays at 20, 25. Your body just goes different.
It
Like
does.
you still think you can do all the things that you can do, but all of a sudden the body is just incapable of doing what your mind wants it to do. But
Yeah.
I remember just dying, like, oh my God, like I just don't got it in me anymore.
Oh
So
yeah.
back to the point at hand, like changing your perception, understanding that it's a blessing, it's a wonderful thing to be able to do all the things that you're attempting to do.
Yeah.
It actually should be an indicator that you have a lot to go for in your life. There's a lot of
Yeah.
cool things in your future. You just got to keep going at it. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's something else, man. It's something else. So I do want to keep moving you along a little bit because I love that we've
Yeah.
stopped in this juncture, but I want to talk about you as a college coach and as a coach now. And I did hear that you're coaching boys now too, right? You're taking a high school boys team on?
Yeah, I think it's been a long time since I've coached club. But
Or club, that's what it was.
yeah, I'm gonna coach club. I'm gonna be a part of a club program here in Northern Colorado, and super small. It's gonna be multi-sport athletes, which are near and dear to my heart. I want these
Mm-hmm.
kids to be balanced, but they have a desire to learn the sport of volleyball. So super simple, but I'll coach a club, and we're going to go to the national qualifier that's going to be in Denver in December.
Nice.
So that'll be kind of a
Nice.
fun opportunity. Maybe your team is there. I don't know. Too
You
far.
never know. You never know. I'm trying to
Come to
get,
Denver.
yeah, I'd love to. Well, look, South County's boys volleyball side has been, it changed once I got there because but up until then it was sort of just regional stuff, and certainly they were always sort of mid-tier, and then I got in there and ruffled everyone's feathers because I was like, we're gonna play college level volleyball, like that's what we're gonna do,
Yeah.
and this is
Yeah.
the style we're gonna play at. And I'll never forget my first month in, parents and other coaches in the system were like, what's he doing? Like, why are we training this way? I'm like, because this is how big boys play volleyball. Like we can
Yeah.
already beat the crappy teams. What we want to do is see if we can compete and beat teams that are very, very good. And we went from being mid-tier, up until when I started. And then from when I started to now, we're now the third top team in the region from, Maine
Awesome.
all the way down to New York. So, we've now, granted, we've gotten some really good players that have come in, because you can be as dynamic a coach as you want, X's and O's wise, but you need some horses to get the job done too. And
Yeah.
we've gotten lucky there. But, we wanted to change that. And the next part of it was we need to travel. Like we can't just
Yeah.
be going to 4 tournaments that are Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, and then Massachusetts again. We need to go elsewhere. So I made us go to Pennsylvania. So we got to go down to Pennsylvania.
Nice.
And then I made us go to Florida this year. We got to go to nationals.
Yes.
You can't not go to
Yes.
nationals. Like that's the biggest premier thing there. That's where all the coaches are. And that's how I frame it too. Like, hey, if I was a college coach, I'd want to see these kids in nationals.
Yes.
And then I also
Yes.
framed it when I was in NCSA. Was always pushing nationals is where the break is going to happen, because that's when the most opportunity to be seen. So
Right.
Denver's possibility. Problem is,
Not going to rule it out. Not going to rule it out.
It's a fundraising issue more than anything else. And but I want to talk about your coaching career. I want to pivot to that a little bit. I do want to also talk about your preparation for beach volleyball. So let's do the beach volleyball first, because we just sort of talked about it. When you were
Okay.
playing in matches, right? When you were playing in matches and you were playing, I don't know how your training was, but what was your prep going into a match? Like, I'm talking specifically, what was in your bag? How did you handle it? How much warm up time? What were you thinking? All that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I have a PowerPoint presentation from NCSA for Beach Volleyball 101, tournament prep, if you want me to pull that up. First, I got to say, it took me a couple years to find that preparation. I was kind of flying by the seat of my pants, like not having a clue what I really needed to do to prep my body, because I'll tell you what, like, I know indoor is a hard sport, but dang, beach, like the
Mm,
elements, the wind, the sun, like the heat, the sand in your eyes. I mean, the depths of the sand, the preparation, whew, like you really got to be in peak physical condition, and
mm,
mentally there. So a couple things. If you're going to really go for it with sand, and the great thing is it's fast growing sport. There's some boys sand getting into college. Like there's some cool things happening. But we got to play, we got to experience it. We got to get to the coasts. Thankfully, like I said, I hauled myself out to San Diego. I threw myself in the Lion's Den. I had phenomenal coaches like Angela Rock. I had Liz Massakayan. If you don't know those names, Google
I know
them.
Liz.
Like they
I know
are
Liz
absolute
Massacre.
legends.
Yeah.
Yes. And they taught me, right? And then of course all the pros that I was competing and training against in San Diego and LA, because we always go up north. So when you think about prepping for a tournament, it happens way before the actual day of the tournament. You got to make sure you're getting that sleep, you're getting the food in, the nourishment to last those long, long days outside,
Hmm.
in all the elements. But I think some of the best advice I was ever given is like, getting there early. I was always at the tournaments. Once I figured it out, I was at the tournaments probably 45 minutes to an hour well before the event was even going to start, just to walk it and see where everything is, where are the potential courts that I might play on, like, because we didn't always
Right.
know until the day
Right.
of. And just get set up, and that was probably like the most calming. It's like the calm before the storm. You got the ocean, you got everything is just so calm and chill, and we're just starting to wake up, and this huge event, like an AVP or an NVL is like about to start. And then just kind of mapping out, when are the potential times that I'm going to eat, what am I going to eat, because I'll tell you what, when you start competing, and I think this is similar to indoor, you're not very hungry. Like,
Well,
you don't really have, you don't want to eat big meals. You're just going, but you need something, because if you don't, you can't last. So just trying to map out, like, when could my potential breaks be, where would I go, and then always having so many snacks on hand,
mm,
in my cooler, drinks, electrolytes, my favorite foods that I knew I felt I could have it quickly, I felt nourished and not um, bogged down. Preparation, whenever I'd warm up, I'd have this idea of, I am going to warm up, like win warm-ups. I
mm,
almost treated warm-ups like a game in itself. Like, I'm going to get my head right, got the music going, got a great dynamic warm-up, and then getting to the ball handling. Like my partners, beach volleyball partners, we had multiple, whoever it was, we had our specific, routines with
right.
each
Yeah.
other.
Yeah.
Tons of ball handling, partner stuff, then movement, like getting my pulls and, all those things. Sometimes we had a coach, and sometimes we didn't. And I think that's the pretty interesting part about beach, is that you're kind of going in, it's just you and your partner. You don't always have a coach with you. You don't always have the resources to have a coach warm you up. You're warming yourself up, or you're grabbing a friend. I had my friend Paula Evenson, like, hey, can you come out and toss balls at us while we try to get our serve receive warm up going? And she was, there for us, but preparation is so key. And I literally do have a presentation on it of, like, what to bring, how to prepare mentally, physically, and emotionally, and just kind of maintain throughout the whole day. And if it's a multi-tournament day,
Even
after
different.
your, yeah,
Yeah.
after day one, you better get in an ice bath. If you're by an ocean, get in that ocean. Nothing better than
Mm.
an ocean dip, like between matches, to refresh the salt water. Everything has just felt recovery mode, just to get you ready for the next phase of the tournament.
You definitely need athletic tape. Always have tape.
So much tape.
That's what it's about.
Kinesio tape, KT tape was
Yeah.
man, whenever we had a medical tent, or like, those athletic trainers, they were my best friends. They were my best
Oh
friends in
yeah.
college. They were my best friends in my pro beach career. Like, some amazing epic tape jobs to keep us
Yeah.
going.
Yeah. Well, I find it fascinating. One of the reasons I asked the question is I find it fascinating how many players that I've seen at the high school level, club level, even at the college level, like they don't have a bag of prep. Like they're not
Oh,
prepped for what's
you would ask me
happening,
what's in my
you know?
bag. Yeah.
Yeah, like they don't understand that. I mean, when I went, I mean, that was something I learned in college for basketball was that my bag had everything I could, I was thinking about what could actually go wrong throughout a match or throughout a game.
Yeah.
And I had every possible answer to it in my bag. All right, forgot my shoes. I got an extra pair of shoes. I forgot, I ripped my shirt. I have an extra jersey. If I
Yeah.
my dislocated my pinky, I needed tape to tape it to my other like I was always thinking ahead about what would need it. And snacks, like you said, lots of snacks, because you're not going to eat a meal after a match. Like especially if you're in volleyball, you're playing sometimes back-to-back matches, sometimes 4 matches. I mean, it all depends, but I'm just stunned how many people aren't prepped for the day.
Yeah. Yeah. And even in college, we were completely spoiled. Like at NDSU, we had an incredible support staff. Everything was kind of done for us. So when
Mm,
I went on to play and was independent and doing my own thing, I really had to figure it out. Like, oh God, nobody else is packing my bag. Like, what do I need in this bag? And there'd be times I'd forget water, I'd forget snacks that I needed. I'd be panicking.
yeah.
It's like, rubber bands, the bands to do my arm
Mm,
warm-ups. I never
yeah.
leave anywhere without a rubber band. I never
Mhm.
leave anywhere without the stick, to
Mhm,
massage my
yeah,
muscles,
roll you
like
out. Yeah.
roll you out. I mean, they're in a foam roller, a little tiny foam roller. We'd bring that out on the beach, towels upon towels and sarongs,
Mhm.
hats, big old hats, and sunscreen and glasses. I
The
mean, the list
sun's
goes
your
on.
the sun's your biggest enemy in those
Big
tournaments
time enemy.
often. Yeah, like that'll put you. That's why I never got into it. Like 2-on-2 beach. This big Swede does not want to be in the sun that long. Like I'll, I'll probably just turn to dust. So I've always been an indoor animal. Uh,
Oh my
you know,
gosh.
and my buddy Garrett, who's actually trying to make a go of it right now on the professional circuit, like he talks to me all the time. He's like, "Dude, the sun's brutal." I said, "That's why I never
Yeah.
did it. Gee, I can't do it. Like I don't want anything to
Yeah.
do with that." But
The
all right, so
sun can be your friend. Pro tip: the sun is wonderful, but only when you make your opponent look up into it. So I would get really good at the sky, like get that big high ball, make my opponent look
oh
up. Now
man,
we're friends, sun. Now we're friends.
all the kids want to do sky balls in the gym and indoor. And I'm like, God, the only reason it works is because the sun is out there.
Yeah,
Otherwise, if you have anybody who's good, you're just giving them a free ball
free ball.
and they're just running the offense down our throat. Don't do that.
Yeah, for sure.
Let's talk coaching now. So what would you
Yeah.
say? I mean, you're coaching women mostly. I mean, certainly you're delving back into the boys a little bit, but through your career, it's been women. What's your brand of volleyball? What were you guys known for?
My brand of volleyball.
Hmm.
First of all, I got to tell you, I've coached a lot of boys in my past. Men, I like my first experience was at NDSU. After I was done playing, I coached for the men's club team, and
Oh,
that
okay.
was like such a cool because we went to men's club volleyball. That is fun. Like
It
you want to talk
is.
about party all the time, like volleyball. Like we had a blast. Driving down to nationals down in Texas, driving back up, road trips together. We had a good time. And then I actually coached club men's at University of San Diego and then Colorado State. So I've had some really fun experiences with club men's in college. But what's my brand? Because I've kind of been everywhere, right? So
Yeah.
it's like, and
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
I've always been a support role. That's something that I want to make clear is that I've always been like assistant, especially for Minnesota State, College of St. Benedict, San Diego, or South Dakota State. So it was more just supporting the head coach. That's your job, is to find ways to translate what is the head coach doing, what do they need from you. This is the translation. That's what an assistant coach does really well.
Yep, I have a guy who does that
Um,
for me. His name's Ben Lind, and he calls himself the Reslo translator. And whenever I'm losing my mind, and the kid
yeah,
doesn't, Ben takes him aside. So listen, Coach Reslo is trying to tell you this, this, and this.
yes,
It's just he
yes,
is who he is, and you just got to understand. He doesn't hate you. He just is frustrated with the situation, and
totally.
he's done dicking around. So like it's time to figure it out. So yeah, you need
Yeah.
that absolutely.
You do. And I think like when I coach beach, I mean, primarily, if I just kind of recall the last 3, 4 years, I've primarily been coaching beach in the summers And then I coach high school. I was coaching high school indoor as in support roles, lead coach on the beach, but support in high school. And I always wanted student athletes to come away with understanding ball control, understanding this round object. How do I make it go? What does my hand have to do? What do my arms have to do? How can my shoulder, how can anything on my body affect that round object to make it go? So ball control, I just don't think that was emphasized ever enough in my youth. And because and maybe it was, but I just ignored it because I was thinking of I want to hit this ball as hard as I possibly can in Spiketown, USA. So that's kind of like a personal coaching philosophy, is really helping them understand how to manipulate their body to make this ball go where they want it to go. And then being a good teammate, be a darn good human. I was not a good human, Rez. I bet you and I probably could swap stories about how awful we were, we just weren't our best selves. We were growing, we were maturing, right? We can give us some grace now, but
some mature,
I was a turd.
Yeah, some mature a little bit later in life than others. And as I've told one of the toughest players that I ever had at Johnson & Wales, we all pay for the sins that we did in our youth. And that's why I coach, because I was
100%.
not a great guy. I was very selfish, very, very, not very good. Yeah.
And so if I can help kids think of someone else while they're trying to get good at this sport, light bulb moments, because you come in, you're like, I want to be better. And sometimes, like for me, I was selfish, but I was selfish for my team. I was so hard on myself. I wanted to be my best so I could really contribute to what we're trying to do. And I felt that every time I was failing my team. I'm failing my team. And I really needed to let go of that and just embrace every time I'm failing is that opportunity to get better. If I never failed, if I never hit the back of the wall, hitting as hard as I could, how could I learn how to hit down and understand the mechanics of all that and the things that go into it? So just that embracing of failure is something I've taken into my late 30s and early 40s. Yeah.
Yeah. Meet the Robinsons. See that movie. That'll teach you what failure is all about.
Yeah.
Have you seen that one?
I don't know. Movie? I don't think so. I got to Google
Meet
it.
the Robinson. Oh, dude, it's probably one of the best movies on trying and failing and how failure is how you learn. And if you don't fail, you can't learn. It's awesome.
The cartoon?
Yeah, it's wonderful. I made my guys
Even
watch
better.
it one year. Yeah, that's one to check out. Meet the Robinsons. The other thing that I do for that I just to piggyback on what you're saying is I talk about, and I don't know exactly where I got this from, maybe Dr. Peterson, maybe somebody else, but like they talk about how if you take all the games that you play in your life, like every single game, whether it's volleyball, basketball, tiddlywinks, what have you, card games, poker, whatever, if you take all of them in your life and combine them up to this point, you've won 50% of the time and you've lost 50% of the time. So like, if you think of it that way, the main thing you want to do is be a good human being, a good teammate, because at the end of the day, the only way you can go to 51-49 or 52-48 is if you get enough opportunities to play and luck falls on your side. And the only way you get enough opportunities to play is if people like playing games with you. If they don't like playing games with you, you will not get enough opportunities and you'll stay at 50-50, or maybe it goes the other direction, 48, but it won't gravitate too far one way or the other. But if you want to be on the upside of the 50s, people want to play with you. And that's why you have to be a good teammate. And I always thought that was like a light bulb thing too. And I share that with my team every year. And they're like, oh, okay.
I like that. I like that.
Like Rez is crazy, but yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. Definitely. So now, first off, as we're rounding third, heading home here, again, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. But now I got to ask you the questions that I ask everybody on these interviews. So here we go. The first is, first is what is your weirdest moment as a coach?
As a coach?
Yeah.
Weirdest moment?
Yeah, weirdest moment. Like, I'll give you the example. This will help you. So I asked this question to Nancy Samara. Nancy was the coach at Johnson & Wales for a little bit. She was the most successful coach in JWU history. She was a D1, played at USC, and then did some other things, and coached at USC as an assistant, and coached at South Carolina, and now she's at Fairfield. And I I was gravitated to Nancy because like, here's this woman who has accomplished a ton in the volleyball world. And so Jay Wu wanted to do an interview session like I've been doing here. And I was like, oh, let me do it. So I asked her that question and she said, all right, we're at South Carolina, we're playing somebody, and it might not be South Carolina. By the way, I'm going to have Nancy on. I'm going to ask her for real again and get it on tape this time. But I asked her, I said, she goes, well, we're playing and we run a right side red ball or something like that. Pin takes a swing, goes off the block and out of bounds. And the referee goes out of bounds, no touch, out of bounds.
Right.
And she's like, how is it possible? And the reason she could say, how is it possible, and was flipping out was because the girl who blocked her broke her finger. Like the finger snapped and blood was gushing out and she's holding it like this. And Nancy's going, her finger is broken. There's a touch on the block. The ball.
Oh my gosh.
And the referee was adamant. No touch.
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, that's amazing. That story is unreal. And she's like, yeah, sometimes officials just decide they're not going to be wrong. And it stinks, but at the end of the day, she's like, that was the weirdest thing that's ever happened because she's bleeding over there. And of course, we all feel for her. I mean, she broke her finger.
Yeah.
We want her to be better and all that fun stuff. But Nancy's like, I want to put that aside for a moment. She clearly touched the ball. Like,
unbelievable.
It was pretty funny.
There's no way I could even. First of all, I probably should have told you I have a terrible memory. I did tell you. I did tell you before we came on. I'm a proud mother of a 7-year-old and 8-year-old. I'm telling you, when a woman gives birth to children, she has baby brain. Baby brain means that all you can focus on is keeping your humans alive. I am claiming baby brain for the rest of my life because my children are always, and it takes brain power to think about them. Therefore, you forget everything else.
I remember, dude, I remember when my son was born, when Quentin, my oldest, was born. And, one of the things they don't tell you is that, after this magical, incredibly stressful thing happens where you give birth and granted, my wife did all the work. I ain't saying I did anything. I just tried to be a good dude. But like, after that happens, like you kind of just get up and go home. Like you get it, maybe 3 days.
Bring the baby home.
They're like, here, you're on your own now. Good luck. And you're kind of like thinking to yourself, do these people realize who we are? They're just giving us this kid and we're going to go home now. Like, this is not great. And then, so like you have it in your head that like the first 5 months, keep the baby alive. It's all that matters. Nothing else matters in this world. Just keep the baby alive.
So true.
And I try to explain that to people who are just having kids. Cause some of my friends now are just starting in and I'm like, dude, it's going to be hard. Just understand, keep the baby alive. If you're keeping the baby alive, you've done all right. You're
crushing it. You're crushing it. Oh gosh. But yeah, it's funny because I get people ask me like, what's your favorite this? What's your favorite that? What's your most memorable that? I'm like, I need a good week to look through like pictures and like look through anything that will just jog a memory because it just feels like it's poof gone. But so I'm going to get back to you one day on what was my weirdest moment.
Check back in. All right. Well, how about this?
There'll be a follow-up sometime. I'm like, I got you, Scott. I got this.
Well, I'd love to have you back on the show because I think you're fantastic. But how about this one? What is one thing you think every coach should know that they probably don't?
Okay. This is kind of a weird one.
Sure.
But 2 things that come to mind. When you look at the kids that you are coaching, kids meaning any age, 10 to 80, if you get lucky to coach people who are still rocking it at 80, which I have, by the way, you are coaching, mentoring, and leading someone else's heart. So parenting, when I'm parenting and I'm looking at my children are my heart running around this world. That's my core. That's my humans, right? You're doing that to someone else's heart. So when you can look at them from that perspective, I think you're going to be pretty awesome, right? But if you start looking at them as like a number or as anything less than someone else's heart, that's where maybe some of the conflicts and disrespect and things, you lose sight of what you're doing.
Sure. Yeah.
What was the second thing? I had 2 things. Nope, it's gone.
Well, the interesting thing is that, and I want to, again, I want to relate to what you said. I love that phrase, you're coaching somebody's heart, someone's desire, someone's dreams, right? And what makes coaching challenging and why it's an art, why it's hard to do, why not everyone can do it, is that there's oftentimes you got to tell somebody no. Like you have
Yeah,
to tell them the truth about what's going on. And it's from your perspective, surely, and there might be a little bit variable in terms of what's actually happening because our perspectives are really, it's hard to pin down truth because everyone sees it slightly in a different shade. But more often than not, truth is truth. And you have to say to somebody like, hey man, like, or hey ma'am, this isn't gonna work. Like
right.
I'm going a different direction. I'm choosing a different player. I'm putting someone else on there. And that can be crushing.
Yep.
And how do you deal with that? How do you,
Right.
like for example, on our team, there's a kid who's talented, who has struggled. This is South County, and who's been very good for us at times, but also at times has not been very good. And
Right.
I've had to make a change, and it got to the point where my explanations weren't doing anything for him. Like
Right.
he was really upset, and I get it. Like I totally get it. But at the same time, it's my job to do what's best for the entire team, not just what's best for that kid. And in
Right.
the end, what we ended up doing was my assistant coach. I'm like, you're going to filter everything I say to him. Like,
Sure. Sure.
because he's got a problem with me. Like he does not like what I'm saying. He doesn't
Yeah.
care what I'm saying. It's gotten to the point in the relationship where he doesn't believe anything that I'm telling him. So we're going to filter it through you. And we were fine. Like it just
Yeah.
needed a different voice.
Yeah.
But that's the hard part. Like, because I totally understand, believe, and I'm with you on the idea that you're coaching someone's dreams, you're coaching someone's
Right.
beliefs, someone's heart. But what do you do when you have to tell them we got to do a
Well, I
different
think
direction?
to kind of piggyback off what you're saying is that like somebody local here who I really admire and respect, we have tryouts, people get cut. Some people just don't make it, or you have people on your team that are not that great, that are definitely the weakest link. The idea is that coach them anyways,
Yeah.
like no matter who they are, what they are, coach them anyways. Even the kids who get cut, she would have handwritten letters and resources. Hey, it didn't
Mm,
work out this time around for us, but here's what you can do to go continue on being something else. And it can be
mm,
volleyball related, or it can be anything. Like
yeah.
this doesn't define you. This doesn't make you a terrible person or anything that negatively could happen to a kid when they get bad news, right? So
Mhm.
the idea is to give a damn. Just give a
Right.
damn. Like coach
Right.
them
Yeah.
anyways, give them resources, love on them as best you can. I'm not saying be easy on them, because you can still be a hard coach and get, kids to
Yeah.
perform and stuff like that, but you still care about them.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's perfectly put. I had a coach that I used to work with that said, people view cutting kids as a real problem, and it's sort of, it's uncomfortable and all that fun stuff. But she believed it was the best thing for them because, hey, we're actually we're letting you know that your future is going to be bright, but it's going to be somewhere else. So go do that. Like, let's
Go do
stop
that.
you from going down this path where it's, you're on the tween, you're on the fence of even making the squad. Whereas maybe you're talented in another avenue, and now that's going to open you up to really blossom in that other avenue. And
Yeah.
and again, no coach wants to break anybody's heart. No coach wants to
No.
hurt anybody. Like it's not the play. You know, First off, you have to be pretty sadistic to want to do that. Secondly, that doesn't lead to success for you as a coach.
Yeah.
And we want to win games certainly, but we also want to create relationships with players.
Yeah.
The greatest thing that's ever happened to me in a lot of ways, besides my family, my wife, and my boys, has been moments where players have come back to me after the fact and thanked me for all the things that
Yeah.
I've done for them. And like that just, puts you on cloud nine and makes you feel like you matter in this world. Like, so for me to want to sadistically hurt somebody in that world, like you wouldn't do that. Like most coaches don't do that. So
Right.
really it's just, yeah, it sucks. It's uncomfortable, but we're giving you a different opportunity to blossom in a different avenue.
Totally.
And I think you said it perfectly. Give a damn. Like, don't just cut
Yeah.
somebody and scrape them off their plate like fat from fat from a meal that you ate. Like,
Yeah.
actually care about what's going to happen to them next, and that should go a
That's
long way.
somebody's daughter. That's someone's son. They
That's
matter.
right. Yeah. Once I had my kids, my coaching changed a little bit for the better. Like all of a sudden, I saw my boys and everybody that I work with. And I'm
Oh
just like,
yeah.
yep, we got to do right by
Oh
them.
yeah.
That's the end of it. What's one thing a player should know that most players don't?
Yeah, I think it has to do with embracing all the different coaching styles that you're going to encounter. I think that as players, younger players, we resist certain coaches. So for example, if a kid gets to coach with me or I get to train them and then they go to another coach and they get trained, and because there's all these private lessons coaches and group sessions and college camps and all the things, they get all this information, and kids get, and I did this too when I was younger, is we resist some of that information because we're like, well, my coach said it this way.
Right.
Listen, volleyball is keep the balloon off the floor. There's many ways to try and do it. And you'd be shocked to find out that the majority of us are saying the same thing, and it's just embrace, be a sponge for knowledge of the sport. You don't have to love and like every coach. Not every coach has the delivery for you. Some people are verbal, audio, or like, kinese, whatever, all the kind of learners that you are. But man, if you can just be like, this person in front of me is going to teach me something today. And they might shock me because maybe I was hoping to come in here and get skill work, but they actually taught me how to act right, attitude, right? So just being really, as a player, if I could go back, I would have been way more open-minded when I was a teenager, and even young adult, of just soak it in, let it all come in. I'll make sense of it as it goes, but it's all good. All that information that's coming from me from these different coaches and coaching styles.
Oh, that's perfect. That's absolutely perfect, because I share in that. I wish I could go back and actually embrace all the things that I was being taught instead of being a knucklehead. And actually, I ended up, I did an interview early on with Springfield coach, and he talked about one of the things, because he's involved in USA volleyball. Like, he was on the staff with Spara back when the men played in Brazil and all this stuff. And so he's always involved in all this crazy stuff. He said, Rez, one of the things that really is interesting in terms of coaching volleyball is that when you go to different countries, different cultures, they view the game differently, and you can learn how to do it differently just by culture, whereas the men's game for USA or the women's game for USA looks like this. Actually, over in Thailand, it looks completely different, and over in India, it looks completely different. And they're what they focus on and what's important to them and what their values are bleeds into how they play the game.
Right.
And what they focus on there is completely different. I'm trying to think of an example, but I guess one would be, and this is just make a dumb example. At the men's game for USAV, we work really hard on the block. Like, the block's massively important. Whereas if you go to Japan, it's more about ball control and speed than it is about the block. And it's just a cultural thing. Like, it's just, so again, you have all these opportunities to learn how to do the game and how to be better at the game. Be open to it, because you'll be surprised what you can get out of it. And next thing you know, it takes you to the next level.
Yeah, definitely. I probably have time for one more. My kids, I can hear them. We got to get out the door on our Saturday morning here, but you got one more question for me?
Oh, yeah.
Did we get through them all?
We got through most of them. I'm checking my thing now. I mean, I think the one thing that I really want, for you, what's the future look like, Heather? What are you doing next? What's going on?
Yeah, so I have determined that I am in a season of life where I really, really want to be focused on my own children, be a mom, be present, be at their things. Like my daughter, she's just taken into, she loves dance, she loves singing, she's gonna be a theater kid. I know nothing about that stuff, and I want to lean into it with her and be there and show up. So I've definitely taken a lot of steps back from like really coaching and being in the community a ton, because I'm like, my kids are little, they love me right now. I want to be there for all of this. And then when they get to middle school and high school and they want nothing to do with me, boom, right back at coaching. Like, that's what it's all going to happen for me. But yeah, right now I'm focused on, I mean, my son, he's so cute. He thinks he's going to the NBA, and we're all living in a mansion with him. And by golly, that kid's playing basketball every single day. His dad played overseas basketball, pro basketball. So he's just all into it. And I want to be there for all of it. So that's my season of life right now. But future wise, I just, I can't quit coaching. I love it so much. I'm still working to grow the game of beach wherever I go. So a lot of beach volleyball, whenever the sun is shining, the weather's appropriate. We're playing here till November, guys. Like, I don't care that we're landlocked and we get some snow. I want to play beach and coach beach as much as I can, but be short-term-ish future, I'd say.
Awesome. Heather, thank you so much for being on. I really appreciate it. Love talking with you. Love catching up with you. And certainly we got to have you on
Yes.
again. And everybody, check this out. Always, come to the YouTube channel and check out all the interviews we do. Really, I'm blessed to have all these people that I know that are really big in the sport, and you're going to learn so much. So again, Heather, thank you so much. I'll let you go. Have a great rest of your weekend. And yeah, hope to talk to you soon again.
Thank you so much. It's just an honor to even be in the conversation with you. I really hold that dear. Thank you so much.
Stay well. Bye-bye.
Bye.